What is up and welcome into the block. I got my guys, Reed and Blake Brockermeyer here, ready to talk some college ball. Again, we're inching closer to the 2022 season, so you at home, help us build the block from the ground up as we prepare to cover you all season long with all college football happenings. Like, share, subscribe, continue to get us out there as we get ready for the 2022 college football season. Speaking of that, some guys are getting ready for a pivotal season in their collegiate careers. Former five-star recruits who are on the clock of sorts. I want to know, which former five-star recruit to you is it now time to step up, win a job, or make some plays? I want to go to you first here, Blake. There's a big name out west who it feels like it's about time he makes some plays for the Trojans.
Yeah, Korey Foreman, the USC edge defender, is a guy that I've got my eyes on. He was banged up last year and injured. He played in the majority of their games and kind of got his feet wet, but I expect him to make a big jump this year. I think he's moving to an outside rush linebacker position, which I think is going to really suit him. Watching him in high school doing the one-on-one drills against some of the top offensive linemen in the country, he's got all the ability to the world. And I think, after, his first year, which a lot of people would call it a disappointment, but to me, it's just, it's part of the evolution of a player. Not every top player in the country is going to come in and be an All-American. These kids go from high school to being the big dog on the field to going against some stiffer competition and going against, first round draft picks on the other side of the ball. And it's a lot different deal when you're on your own and you really find out how much you really love the game. So he's a guy I've got my eye on. I expect him to do much better this year, but he's got to stay healthy, and he's got all the talent in the world to be an elite player out west.
I think that Alex Grinch's defense is great for an edge rusher. When I look back over the years, guys like Sean Ray, who was with the Denver Broncos, Marcus Golden with the Arizona Cardinals, Ronnie Perkins and Nick Benito, who he coached at Oklahoma, that are now in the NFL. Those are guys that really thrive from that edge position under Alex Grinch's defensive leadership. So I think that Korey's in a situation where he's in as good as hands as he could be to really flourish in the way that they play defense and the defensive style that Alex Grinch has. I'm looking, Blake, at JT Daniels. My first time really seeing JT was at the Army All-American game when he was coming out of high school. And I think that JT, having been at USC, having been at Georgia, and now having been at West Virginia, and has had crazy recruiting processes at all three stops, it's time to show that you really can play. Every place it's been JT can make all the throws. He has this other world talent. He had a lot of trouble where he couldn't beat out a walk-on at Georgia. And I'm interested to see, what is all the hype about? Is this a guy that is not as good as what we think he is? Is it something missing between the ears? It's time for you to go out here now and show that you actually are a good quarterback. And I'm going to be very interested to see what he does at West Virginia this year, because I haven't seen much from him on the football field over the course of his career to this point.
Yeah, I think it's similar to a lot of these guys. He's been hurt most of his career, and injuries have cost him the vast majority of his career. And have an opportunity to get on the field when he has been on the field, I think he's been fairly effective. And so he's got to stay healthy. He's in a good situation this year with an OC that he's familiar with. He's got all 5 offensive linemen back at West Virginia this year. They've got some weapons on the outside. So the main thing for him is, everybody knows what a talent he is. He's got to stay healthy, just like all these guys.
We'll see what JT Daniels does for the Mountaineers very soon. Massive year for him as he tries to adjust to yet another setting. But I want to talk about a guy, when we're talking about former 5-stars, who at one point was largely seen as the #1 wide receiver in his class. There's a lot of wideouts at Ohio State, but our guys over at Preps to Pros highlighted a guy in Emeka Egbuka who needs to step up for the Buckeyes. I'm looking at Julian Fleming. I mean, this is an athletic freak, the former Pennsylvania Gatorade Player of the Year, had 5 catches for 35 yards in the Rose Bowl against Utah. But outside of that, not a whole lot of production. Obviously, at Ohio State, you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's pretty darn good, Marvin Harrison Jr., pretty darn good, Emeka, so on and so forth. Fleming's going to have to work his way out of this wide receiver core, Blake, and if he can step up, he's got all the traits to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the best developer in college football in Brian Hartline working with him. So if he can't get it done with him, then it's maybe not meant to be at Ohio State. So I look for him to put together a good season. He's got a great opportunity, got to stay healthy, just like all these guys do. And he's got talent. So he's just got to put it all together on the field this year on a team that's going to be loaded on offense.
And one thing we have to look at when we talk about these guys is everybody's not going to go to the NFL, and all of these guys are not going to pan out. There's always going to be very good high school players who get to this level, and maybe they get injured. Maybe they're not as good as we thought they were. Maybe they don't have the intestinal fortitude to push through the adversity that comes with being a football player. But everybody just doesn't make it, and that's something that some guys are going to have to live with.
Yeah, it's just like the NFL draft. I mean, every first-round pick doesn't turn out to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, some of these guys turn out to be incredible players. A lot of it's fit, a lot of it's scheme, a lot of it's motivation. When guys have a lot of success at a certain level and go to the next level, sometimes they don't have the same success. It could be a million reasons, but I think all these guys have talent. Everyone that's playing college football has talent. It's not what you did at the last place that you went to. If you're a college player in high school or an NFL player in college, it's what you're willing to do to sacrifice to be the best version of yourself at that next level to be an elite player. And some people want to do it, some people don't.
Very well said by both of you. And speaking of elite players, though, Alabama has jumped up to the #1 overall spot in the 2023 recruiting rankings. I know this is a shocker. I know this information is stunning, but at the same time, I need to know if the Tide are there to stay. We know Texas A&M did really special things a cycle ago. Kirby Smart, Ryan Day always lingering. Notre Dame is still there. Who knows if the Irish can remain in contention, Carl? This is an interesting race at the top of the 2023 class.
I think that in this case, over the years, we've been accustomed to Alabama being at the top of the rankings, and they've stayed there, and it's been hard for people to catch them. NIL changes the game, and it changes a lot of situations in terms of kids flipping at the end because you never know how much money can be involved. Also, as the transfer portal and kids start leaving programs and start to move around, that also has an effect. So I expect for Alabama to be up at the top or around there, but you can't discount Georgia. You can't discount Ohio State. You can't discount Notre Dame and Texas A&M. It's 5 or 6 programs now that are going to be flirting with that top spot, and NIL is going to have a lot to do with it as kids continue to push for the money down the stretch in recruiting.
Yeah, you can expect Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia to be in the top 3 or 4, in my opinion. After that, just like Carl said, it's all going to come down to money and opportunities and NIL for these kids, because the old days of development and winning are not as important to kids as it once was. So that changes the game. I expect Miami will be a big player in this at some point. They've recruited really well so far this cycle. And they haven't even started their season yet. I expect them to have a good season this year. USC is a team to watch out for on the West Coast. Going to the Big Ten is going to be a big boost for them. And, they've got the West Coast, them in Oregon, whatever they want to do out there, because there's so many opportunities for them out there. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But those 3 players in Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia are going to be at the top of the list for sure.
I don't think the Crimson Tide will be slowing down. Obviously, the typical contenders you guys mentioned, but I do also really quickly want to say, man, what does it say about Marcus Freeman even if some of his guys are on flip watch, and he's able to put the Fighting Irish in that position towards the top of the 2023 24/7 Sports team rankings? I think it's a very good job as he settles in as the head coach for Notre Dame. Let's go to head coaching talk. This is always fun in the world of college football. Who's going to be the next guy to lead your program? Well, 24/7 Sports' Riley Gates has put out a list of 10 college football assistant coaches most likely to ascend to the head coaching position. Who on this list impresses you the most, guys? And which one would you say is the most likely to get the nod the quickest? And Blake, I'm going to go to you first.
Well, whoever put Manny Diaz on that list, I had to shake my head when I saw that. I'm not sure he would be a top guy in my category to lead my program after what he's done. But Jeff Lebby's a guy that I really admire. I like. He's got great pedigree. He's married to Art Briles' daughter. He knows the Baylor system inside and out, obviously, which is kind of a well-guarded secret. He coached at UCF, had some great offenses there, and then he went to Ole Miss and lit it up last year with some talented guys and Matt Corral. So the main question with him that he's going to be able to answer this season at Oklahoma is he calling it? That's the question everybody wants to know with him is Lane Kiffin calling it? Is Josh Heupel calling it? Well, he's calling it at Oklahoma. They should have a pretty good offense this year, and I expect for him to rise and be a head coach here in the next couple of years.
I'm going to go for my pick with Barry Odom, the defensive coordinator at the University of Arkansas. Obviously, he was at Missouri before then, finished at 500. A lot of people thought that he should have got an extra year. But I think that his experience under Sam Pittman at Arkansas is going to put him in a different position in the hiring cycle. He now has that full SEC recruiting plan moving forward that maybe they didn't have at the University of Missouri. He's proven to be elite on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that we see him get an opportunity again here soon. And because he does have such a great job as the D coordinator at Arkansas, he can be somewhat selective on the opportunities that he looks at. But I do think that Barry Odom is ready again to be a head coach, and I do think he'll be at the top of a lot of people's wish list.
Yeah, that's an excellent pick, Carl. I'm a big fan of Barry Odom. Watching their defense last year, if I'm a linebacker that plays in the box, I am going to take a very strong look at Arkansas because I love the way they run to the football, keep the ball in front of them, and are very chaotic, and it's just a great scheme to be in. So I think that would be an excellent pick.
Drew Sanders agrees with you, Blake. He had been recruited in the transfer portal, being an edge guy, and he wanted to go play for Barry Odom as an inside linebacker. I think both of these guys, Carl, to your point, have the ability to be a little bit selective. I like both of these picks, but I think the beauty of it all, neither one of them has to rush into a head coaching spot considering where they currently reside. But speaking of the head coaching hiring process, I want to close with this. Your selections feature an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. We know we're kind of in the era of the high octane, up-tempo offense. Everyone wants to hire the next upcoming OC so they can score a ton of points. But Carl, I want to know, how do you view the balance and how to disseminate between hiring an offensive or defensive guy to lead your program whenever you're trying to figure out who your next head coach should be?
Well, this is going to be unpopular for some guys. I'm sure I'll get some calls. But I would tell you this. If I was doing the hiring, I would stay away from offensive coordinators running major college football programs. I think it has been proven time and time again with very few exceptions. And I know everybody's going to say, tell me about Ryan Day and Lincoln Riley, who both took over Cadillac programs. But guys who are defensive-minded, guys who understand that recruiting rules programs, those are the guys that have consistently made the best head coaches. The majority of offensive coordinators that have gotten head coaching jobs, they think they're geniuses. They think they can draw plays up to bail them out of situations, to bail with them about inconsistencies in recruiting. Their personalities are very, very different. A lot of those guys just stay in dark rooms and draw up plays. They don't interact with the roster the way that they should, and they fumble the bag time and time again. But everybody loves offensive football. They love points. So they think that hiring these guys is going to turn their program around and make it popular. But if you sit in a room of defensive coordinators, those guys have always seemed to understand, guys like Kirby Smart, guys like Brent Venables, they always have seemed to understand that they need to recruit better. They need to have the best players to win games. But if you sit in a room with a group of offensive coordinators, they're always going to tell you about some play they came up with, some situation that they're going to draw themselves out of, and it almost never works out. I would be looking for a defensive-minded guy. I would be looking at guys that were great position coaches that dominated in recruiting, guys with the mindset even of Dabo Swinney and Urban Meyer. Those two guys were never offensive coordinators. The guys that are offensive coordinators, there always ends up being some type of personality problem. They always fall short in recruiting, and it typically doesn't work out. I would be looking at the defensive side of the ball, or from guys who were the best recruiters in the country as position coaches to lead the program if I was making the decision.
So now we know Carl is hiring a defensive guy, unless maybe that offensive coordinator is running the wing tee. I don't know. I'm not speaking for him, but we'll see what happens next time he needs a head coach. So I think that's it for today's show. You at home, like, share, subscribe. Continue to help us build up this brand new YouTube channel and our show here on the block. Check these two out on Twitter. Then head to 247sports.com for all things college football and college football recruiting. Gentlemen, it's always fun.